Now is Omer Ozkizilcik. He's a security analyst and non-residential fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins me now live from the Turkish capital, Ankara. Omer, good to see you. So let me talk to you about what this moment means for the people of Turkey. Of course, we have to understand that the PKK terrorist organization has claimed the lives of more than 40,000 people, not just in Turkey, but across the region. But it was the Turkish people who paid the heaviest price. So this day is certainly a very important day for the Turkish population, is it not?
Definitely, it's a historic day for the Turkish people. And actually, almost every Turk has a combined amount of feeling, emotions. On one side, they're quite happy to see that this PKK terror can really end, that it is on the edge of ending, that the PKK is laying down arms. This is something, a future for Turkey without terror, without the threat of terror. You have to understand, Turkey is a country in which even shopping malls have scan systems. In many European countries, you can enter the airport without getting the stuff scanned, but via X-ray machines. So Turkey has been suffering a lot under terrorism. So getting rid of that is something that is exciting every Turk. But secondly, then there's the other issue, like responsibility, accountability. What will happen as these people were killing and terrorizing the Turkish people and the nation? So what will happen in that regard? There are some who cannot really accept this, that these people will lay down weapons and that there will be peace. And it's quite hard emotionally. So it's one side of euphoria, one side it is the hatred against these people's former acts. We have people who lost their relatives, who have lost their children, who have lost their parents, who have lost their brothers in this fight against terrorism. And now we are in a historic time, and everyone is hoping that this will be successful, even though many have some reservations, emotional reservations in Turkish public sphere, the normal Turkish people. Everyone also wants this to end. Even those who are very reluctant to see these pictures now and who are somehow critical, they want the PKK to end. So this is an ultimate uniting goal for everyone in Turkey. And it is something very exciting. Turkey has been calling on the PKK to lay down arms, weapons for 4 decades, more than 4 decades now. And now it's finally happening.
Omer, of course, what we are seeing right now is the beginning of this process, right? And of course, in some ways, it's symbolic because we're not seeing thousands of PKK terrorists laying down their arms. It's a group of terrorists right now, but of course, it's going to lead to the disarmament of the whole group. That's the whole idea, right? But of course, that's going to take some time. What are the key indicators here that one should look out for when it comes to ensuring that this process, which has started today in Suleimaniye, comes to an end?
I mean, one of the major issues that we have to look for is always the risk of a splinter group. So there's always the possibility that some within the PKK might say, you know what, we don't accept this, we will continue the fighting. And we have seen some actions on the ground from the PKK militants who have tried to sabotage this. But so far, they were very few and very limited. And we have to watch out for this, because if there is a splinter group, this will complicate everything. Secondly, what we have to watch is the movement of the PKK militants. So one of the major issues that Turkey has underlined is this is laying down their weapons. This is not that the PKK militants should be relocated somewhere else. And thirdly, what we should look after is where will the Turkish intelligence agree with the PKK as areas for laying down the weapons? So Erbil will definitely be one of the areas, Duhok will be, and then you have Sinjar, which is controlled by the Iraqi central government, and you have the PKK militants there as well. And you have areas closer to the Turkish border. So we need to see how the Turkish intelligence, and they will be in charge of this, will establish these checkpoints or these areas where the PKK can hand over their weapons to the Turkish state. And thirdly, and this is something very important, we have to follow how the internal discourse among the Kurds themselves, might it be the Iraqi Kurds, Syrian Kurds, Turkish Kurds, Iranian Kurds, is evolving, because this will have an effect that was much more than Turkey. It will affect the entire region, and it will shuffle the entire political situation and geopolitical map of the Middle East.
Of course, it is a critical development, not just for Turkey, but for the entire region, as you said, Omer. But what happens to the YPG, Omer? Because you cannot separate the YPG from the PKK. It is an offshoot of the PKK terrorist organization. So what does this day mean for the YPG terrorists?
I mean, the YPG was in the SDF YPG was in negotiations yesterday in Damascus, and they basically did not accept the offer by Damascus, and the American Special Envoy was really upset with the YPG SDF. And now, from now on, seeing that the PKK is also laying down weapons, its Syrian branch will have to make more concessions. I mean, the Syrian branch SDF was not fully capable of understanding the situation they are in. Now it should get more clearer for them after the remarks by the US Special Envoy and the PKK beginning to lay down weapons, that they have to be integrated into the Syrian state. They have to be integrated as fight soldiers, not as a separate bloc within the army. They have to abandon their demands for federalism and decentralization in Syria. And in return, they can be an active part of Syria's political landscape. They can have political parties, they can have local governance, they can have representation in the Syrian parliament. And this is where things has to go. And we may probably see soon a breakthrough in Syria as well. So therefore, this was something very positive for the Syrians who need the oil, the water, and the agricultural lands that is now occupied by the YPG SDF.
And Omer, what kind of impact do you think it's going to have on Turkey's regional influence?
I mean, for Turkey, the PKK issue was always something time-consuming, capacity-consuming, and energy-consuming, to be honest. And any state that would have any grudge against Turkey would use the PKK to harm Turkey. So with the PKK issue resolved, hopefully, Turkey will have no longer this Achilles heel that anyone can exploit against Turkey, and it will facilitate the Turkish role as the protector of the Kurds. So we will see in the future that Turkey will evolve as a state that is actually protecting the rights of the Kurds in Syria, protecting the rights of the Kurds in Iraq, protecting the rights of the Kurds in Iran. And Turkey will, together with its new situation in Syria, be more involved in the matters in the Middle East, south of itself. And we will see that the Turkish-Kurdish-Arab partnership will even further grow.
Now, of course, Omer, in many ways, Turkey is moving beyond the threat posed by the PKK terrorist organization, especially with the disarmament of this terrorist group happening in Suleimania right now. But moving forward, what do you think Turkey is going to focus on, especially when it comes to counter-terrorism efforts?
I mean, in terms of counterterrorism, there is definitely the issue of, will there be splinter cells? Will there be people inside the PKK who will try to continue drug smuggling and human trafficking? And then there's the issue of ISIS. Then you have the issue of other radical elements. But what will Turkey focus on, and this is something that's very important for Turkey, is that we should get away from a security-driven foreign policy to an economically driven foreign policy. Turkey wants to have more commercial ties. Turkey wants the region to flourish. Turkey does not want a war, terrorism, chaos, violence in the Middle East, ramping havoc. So this fits into the Turkish agenda of having Syria stable, having Iraq stable, having all the Arab states in the region stable, and just making business with each other and having flourishing economical ties to such an extent that maybe in the future, and this is a Turkish dream, that there will be no borders in the Middle East and that people can go from one nation to another nation without any visa, like it is in the European Union.
That's Omer Ozkizilcik live for us from Ankara.